Today, I just think there's a lot of programs for the non-registration they have. They have almost 900 kids and they want to send them at that. So that's a lot, right?
Good seeing you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. We have an app, but you probably don't want to download the app yet. Yeah.
Headlines.net.
What are you on? You were on the EVSC website and you clicked on what?
Well, I put on headlines.site and that one out.
Yeah,
Big,
that's,
right.
yeah, that's our website.
Yeah, but
It's not mobile ready yet.
it made me want to do that. No, just want to ship the news. I can't get back to it now.
Right. We have a, yeah, and on Google Play and or on the it is mobile ready. You can get to that thing a lot easier on our website. I used to run on my way to the pilot.
Yes, they cover that because that's actually surprised it wasn't a state. North Carolina, which
We're one of very few states that don't have state companies.
especially with all the way this one. I don't know if they go have their own separate already.
Okay, good.
Which is perfect.
I know, I went to a conference like not so my kids have a high school, have a middle school, and we have so many elementary schools, they call that like the North Kids District, the whole shebang.
Business.
Yeah. Now, I don't know what the history is on that, but that's what it is.
Blackboard, I guess.
Yes. Okay. There he is, with a minute to spare.
I know, I was just yes.
There'll be questions later.
Is this where your kids gonna go to school?
Well, he was supposed to go to Scott, actually, according to this, he should start the second year of operation. Because when it's birthday month.
Well, that's right behind my house.
Okay, well, because he's born December, he's gonna hold it back. Otherwise, he would start at the very first year.
Maybe he'll be so smart that he'll just start.
Maybe.
Well, good evening. Thanks for being here. I truly do appreciate you being here. This will be the first of many. The purpose of this really, I think, is basically threefold. One, to provide additional information to you. Okay. Also want to certainly gather your input, because this is a tremendous opportunity. These opportunities don't come around very often. And we do certainly want it to be your school and your community school. So we certainly want your input. And then also to answer any questions you may have. And I want to say up front, may not have all the answers at this point. Okay. This really is a project that there's been a tremendous amount of work done to get us to this point. But we can only go so far, and now it's time to gather additional information and to start, hopefully, what the fun part is, okay? So, I'd like for this to be as interactive as it possibly can be. If you have any questions at any time, please don't hesitate to ask, okay? I'm David Smith, and it really is an honor to be superintendent of your schools. We have Marcia Jackson, who oversees our communication, Rick Cameron, who oversees all of operations, Alder Offutt, who's the director of school support. We have lots of folks in here. I also see Mike Duckworth, who's president of the school board. So thank you all for being here. Okay. We really had two very basic fundamental goals. And one was to try to reduce the enrollment that we have at Scott and Oak Hill. Those are current enrollment numbers, and you can see that on average, they grow and grow basically at 1 or 2 classrooms a year. Okay, so then naturally the question is asked, can we expand the current locations? And we could have invested money there, but that really was not the best option that we had. So we had purchased this building site in 1995. It's 25 acres, and you can see from the maps up here where this actually is located, that it's located on Petersburg Road, just a little bit north of the Drive. Okay, as I said, we've had it now for 20 years. It was actually purchased, at least that process was begun in 1994, and that's where it is with a little bit larger context. Okay. This is not necessarily the design of the building, but we did ask how it could be fit on that location. So these are basically on here now. This is basically a GPS photo. So you see the baseball field, soccer field, Petersburg Road. So we'll have entries in 2 points. Is one of the main goals of making certain that it fit on this location, was to also make certain that it had good access in and out, where we would not be stacking cars up on Petersburg. Okay. As I said, don't fall in love with this type of design, because that's not necessarily what it will be. The 25 acres is a good size site and parcel of land for an elementary school. Okay. Here are some specifics. Justice, the Paper Associates, will be the lead architect. We've worked with Jeff many times and does a tremendous job for us. Anticipate breaking ground about a year from now. We also anticipated opening in about 33, 34 months from now. Okay. And the grade configuration will be pre-K through grade 6. The building capacity, we're saying 1,000 students. We actually will build the infrastructure, the hard feed, the HVAC, the power and all that larger than that, because we do, I'll show you some slides coming up. I don't think this will be the end of the growth on the north side. But basically what we're doing is we're taking 2 very large schools and making them into 3. Okay? And then this will impact students that are currently in kindergarten or pre-K up through grade 3. Okay? We do have a considerable amount of time between this discussion tonight and when it actually opens. So that's why I'm very grateful that you're here to gather your input. Funding. Currently, $5.7 million in funds have been raised in the last 2 to 3 years through a mechanism that is provided for in our capital projects fund. It's called a future project. And we've identified that now for several years. We should have another $3 million in funding at the end of this year. So in a couple of weeks, when we make certain that we end our books, we anticipate having another $3 million for about $8.7 million cash on hand. Moving forward, anticipated funding in 2016, $5.5 million. If that, I think, would certainly be the max. If it comes in less than that, we have some opportunities in future years. We will also have budgeted $2 million in 2017. So that'll be a total of $16.2 million. We were told that somewhere in the neighborhood of $13.5 to $15 million to build a facility. I think that may be a little bit low. There's a lot of building going on, you know, and when a lot of building goes on, the prices tend to go up. But also notice that that means that we would have the funding completed by 2017, and we wouldn't occupy this until the fall of 2018. That means that bills would not come due in its totality until 2019. So we do have a couple of years where we could obtain additional funding through savings of our capital project. So it will be completely paid for from savings. Okay, we will not take a bond out to build this building. It will be paid for with cash in hand. Okay. Current state, and this really is current state with the demographics. So I don't know if you can see this, but this in the outline, yellow outline, is the district for the new school. This portion is the Scott portion. This portion then is the Oak Hill portion. Okay? And if you would draw an imaginary line from Hillsdale Road, that really is kind of the demarcation. So in the Scott portion of the new school boundary, we have 395 students. If this was up and running today, in the Oak Hill portion in here of the new school, and this is Oak Hill down here, be 344, or in today's student enrollment, 749 students. Okay. Now, some other things that are critically important to note: in current site-ready parcels of ground, there are 287 sites inside the Scott portion of this new district where a home can be built, because it's site-ready today, shovel-ready today. In the Oak Hill portion, 227. So you have an additional 514 home sites just in this new school district, shovel-ready today. Okay, and when you do the mathematical equation, that would equate itself to an additional 107 students. All right, and that's shovel-ready today. Now, moving forward, these are developmental areas in the Scott portion of the new school district. And you add the 2,164 acres of the Scott portion of the new school district, along with the 941 acres in the Oak Hill portion, There are over 3,000 acres still to be developed in this new school boundary. And if you just put an estimate of 3 houses per acre, that's another 9,315 houses that could go on there if it's totally developed. I don't know that it will ever be totally developed. I don't know if it would take 20, 30, 40, 50 years or longer or never. But from what Morley and Associates has done with the study, and they know the Vanderbilt County and surrounding area better than anyone in terms of planning, that means that could add another 973 students on top of the 856 students that potentially could be there. Okay, so when we say that 80% of the housing starts occur in this quadrant, there's no way to really adequately handle that unless we increase the stock of our classrooms. We just simply have to increase the capacity. Also, it's really no secret, but now in today's educational environment where there is no longer transfer tuition, students can choose to go anywhere they want without a charge. Okay? So in the past, some people would say, well, can you just redistrict? And the bottom line is parents are going to choose the school for their child that they want to choose. Okay? And we have to provide the services where the kids are. Okay? This, I think, does a pretty good job of really being very telling of the inclusiveness of the new district. Okay? With the new school being pretty much in the center of the district. All right. And then this would be what the North Attendance District would look like if the new school were built today. And these are current enrollment numbers. Okay, 2015, 2016 enrollment numbers. So now you see that we have 6 K-6 facilities feeding the junior high, feeding the high school. And then just some additional information, and this is in no way intended to be an inclusive list, but the majority of the teaching staff will come from the 2 schools that are being developed into 3 schools. It just makes sense that since the student body will come from those 2 existing schools, that the vast majority of the teaching staff will come there also. Okay. Letters have gone out, so if you didn't receive it today, you will be receiving them very, very shortly. That gives information, also a detailed map. This is the first of many meetings to gather your input, your thoughts, answer your questions. There are school naming opportunities. Really what that looks like, we've not processed this yet, but I could envision this being a great opportunity for students to do some research on historical figures or whomever from the Evansville area, the McCutcheonville area, for opportunities to name the school. I think that could be pretty exciting. Development of school mascot and colors. I mean, this is a brand new building. None of those things exist now. Once again, always could be, I think, a fun opportunity. And then we'd also like to see if we can build this as a net zero school. And what that is basically is that we will produce as much energy as we consume. Fairly new concept, but also provides a lot of learning opportunities for kids. Okay, and that really is it in terms of information. We really wanted to come out here tonight, although I know it was pretty short notice and it is a holiday season, but wanted to, as quickly as we could, come out and gather any input that you have, answer any questions that we can answer at this point in time, and just see how we can be of service to you. Okay? Yes.
Will you showed the picture with the elementary school coming into the north high school. The junior high's already at 1,000 students.
Not quite.
Well.
We'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're already, I mean, that's getting close to capacity from what I
It is.
understand. So what is the plan for that?
We have several options. We actually have an enrollment study for the next 5 years with slow growth, expected growth, and then high growth. So we're planning out for that. This facility was built really with a couple of options in mind. One was to turn it into a 3,000 campus high school, then have the 7th and 8th graders go to other schools, or each wing actually has a capacity to be built onto. The immediate concern really is the cafeteria. I think it's undersized. So that will be addressed first.
So the schools that are pretty far away, Evans and Delaware, there's not a chance that they're gonna be redistricted or sent to a different high school? Or is that part of the study?
You know, we process this, and one of the things that is a concern of mine is that if I say these are potential options, sometimes people forget that we say these are potential options and say, did you hear what we're going to do? So there are lots of things that we can do. Really what we've done is we've studied the capacity that we have for classrooms in this area where the growth has occurred. And we do have several options at our schools. We just could not get away from building additional capacity. Because I mean, there really was no way around that. When you really look at Vogel, without this school and without other things taking place, that enrollment was also going to get to capacity. Mrs. Alford was there last year, and it's a very full school, so there's not a whole lot of maneuvering we could do to move things south or around. You know, I'll give you some options on a very broad scope. We do have some facilities that were built to where we could add on. Okay. We also have the opportunity to change grade configurations. I think there was a time when we had K8s and Super 8s. What we want to do is make certain that the grade configurations meet the needs of the community and also enhance opportunities for students. Okay. I'd love to be more specific, but that I will simply say there are lots of options on the table. And the good thing about, I think, what we're doing now is we are really taking a very long look and have each year that I've been in the office, and we would have loved to have built this a little bit earlier, but financially we had some other considerations that we had to tend to. And, you know, one of those was we certainly wanted to pay cash for the school. Okay. Yes.
Couple things. I've noticed at Stringtown, it only has 478 students, and I know that when your predecessor decided that Oak Hill should not be an elementary, but shouldn't be a middle school anymore, should be an elementary, that he moved the boundary south into Vogel to start with. From Scott School, Oak Hill went on down, then he pushed Scott's border south. It was redistricted, let's just put it bluntly, it was redistricted. And it seems like some of these could be moved over. We also have the White Elephant, the old North High School, that could be turned into, it was going to be a super middle school. And somewhere along the way that didn't happen, and now it hasn't been sold. We're paying insurance on it. We had vandalism, so we had to move some usage in there because of insurance companies and concerns.
I'm not certain what you mean by that comment.
Well, your juvenile delinquent facility, that's all I'm going to call it, because I know those children are brought from confinement to that, and the judge has an office there so he can meet with them. And I heard nightmare stories about it, but the rest of the building is living there, other than once in a while somebody uses the auditorium.
We have about 400 students in that for at-risk students, and you're right, we do deliver a lot of services for the kids in need of services, and that's really what we do, and we, I think, take a great deal of pride in making certain that we don't cast anyone out. We're a public entity that values all human life, and we want to make certain that we deliver great service to everybody. In terms of moving boundaries, Vogel has 177 students that attend there that are out of district. We can move boundaries, that's not a problem. But parents deserve a choice, and we're going to give them a choice.
Legally, they have a choice, but
I think morally, we have a choice to make certain that we provide that for them.
Do more at schools like Washington and Glenwood, Delaware, that the state keeps looking at, and then Title I schools for years, and they get all the zero experienced teachers instead of experienced ones.
Can I help you with?
The other question I had was about the net zero.
Yeah.
How does it work for this building?
This is not a net zero building.
It was going to be, it's going to be a silver LED.
No, ma'am, it's a geo building, which is different. Geo buildings basically take the consistent temperature that's in the ground and then try to moderate that as opposed to moderating the air temperature. A net zero building produces energy. This does not produce energy.
Now, I realize that because we don't have the photovoltaics yet on the roof. And yes, they were in the plans, they were discussed by the architect and Bertram and everybody else. And Mr. Knight didn't convince me of anything.
I was not in I guess, the mix of planning for this facility, but I never heard of a net zero option for this facility. I did hear geo.
Well, Mr. Shoulders spoke of it every chance he got. He even put photovoltaic panels on his office building.
That doesn't equate itself to a net zero building.
Well, it would have added a lot to it if he hadn't run out of money.
Questions I can help you with?
The McCutcheonville ballparks are, right next to there,
Yeah.
and from, our experience with the soccer field and the ballparks, the overflow of parking is an issue there. Have you guys been working with whoever owns that to maybe work together to see about, more parking between those two facilities?
I didn't realize the opportunity here to share some more, maybe alleviate that concern. You know, as I referenced earlier, there's a lot of work done up front, but then to make certain that we didn't get out ahead of the school board or other announcements, now there's a lot of work to be done now. We have a meeting with the county folks, I think January the 6th, talk about roads. I see Scott Township here, outstanding partners that we have. I talked to Scott, McCutcheonville, sorry. Don't block that door, bro. So, you know, this is a great area with a lot of community support, so we'll certainly make sure that we address all the community's concerns. You know, make this a point of pride for Mitchell. But I do think that's going to be a win-win. Any other questions?
Does that 15+ million include filling that lot in, raising the level?
We were talking about the construction of the facility. This
It is.
is this is the 100-year flood plain. This is the side of the school. So there's a portion that we need to attend to, but here's a housing development that's also in the floodplain, Highway 69, just a little road that's in the floodplain. That's why they have borrow pits. That's what this is, to address those concerns. So they'll certainly be addressed. Yes, sir.
I will have, as I understand, I'm a third grader going into the new school. And my only concern, I don't expect you to give a guarantee. Are you confident that at least through the life of that there won't be a redistricting all of a sudden and moving to another school?
Yeah. We actually drew up because we were concerned about that also. When folks moved into the facilities here and there was a readjustment from the K-5 model to the K-6 junior high, all those students will be out of the adjustment, if you will, by the time this school comes online. So we want to do everything we possibly can to make certain that we have a very stable environment for students and that we minimize movement, because we know that's important. We know relationships are important. That's why we want to name the principal a year early, so that he or she then has a huge role in developing the cultural aspect of the school and deciding the faculty that will teach there, so that when we open the door in 2018, it feels like home. because kids spend a lot of time at school and we want them to feel very safe and secure there and comfortable there. And I know that movement isn't necessarily a good thing. I will also tell you, we studied going back to K-5, you know, and all that, and this was not, you know, we did a lot of research on students and efficacy of education when we looked at sixth grade attendance, we looked at sixth grade grades, we looked at sixth grade discipline, and statistically not a difference between our K-5 schools and our K-6 schools and the middle schools for that sixth grade year. But we also learned a lot of things about ourselves, and that I think we can do a better job of adjusting our practices for the youngest kids in school, because oftentimes we tend to treat them like the older kids in school, and that's not a thing that I think we want to continue. Yes.
You mentioned naming the principal a year early. It won't be
Before it's
sooner,
open.
won't be any sooner than that,
Well, we're talking the 17, 18 school year.
in the 17, 18 school year.
Yeah.
And what about the PTA? Because I know when we started the Oak Hill PTA, it took us about a year and a half to get it up where it was approved and the bylaws were approved and stuff. So when we anticipate starting with that?
Well, that's one of those, I think, cascading effects of why we really want to name a principal a year before the school starts, so that individual can coordinate those kind of activities. I think what makes it easier in this situation is we're having two schools grow to 3. So you're going to know people already that, and you know your teachers. I think it should be a pretty smooth transition. We're going to work incredibly hard to make certain that it is. That's very important to us, because I think it's important to you. Yes, sir.
I mean, I think it's probably too early to ask this question. It's too early. I was just thinking that there were some delays in opening, I remember opening North. There were a few delays here and there, and so we know what a principal, I mean, we did that into effect. Yeah, I'm sure delays may come up in building and all that stuff. So would you transfer the middle year? Would you just wait? We think better for the younger kids to wait until the beginning of the next.
That would be my preference. We really want to take possession of the building in March. That's our goal. That's our timeline.
Of 2018.
And then open it in the fall. Because
But I just wondered, because I knew there were some delays.
we actually have quite a few of that built into the plan already. You know, depending on construction, depending on weather, depending on the availability of the workforce, should take 16 to 18 months to build. And we feel very, very comfortable that we'll get everything done in that time. And when we're looking to start, we'll have an abundance of time after that. But I'm a pretty conservative person, so I want to build that in. I would really like to under-promise and over-deliver.
Oh, I'm just biased because I'm lucky my son was the year after, which was in 2019. So I was like, well, wait a year, then I can get in the very first class.
I was in the first class at Home Park, in kindergarten class when it opened, so that you can do the math. I've been around for a while. You know, it's a fun time. It really is. Yes.
What are you expecting the classroom sizes to be?
You know, our classroom sizes right now have really stayed very static. We have really two theories of thought. We have principals that love to have larger classrooms because they have a classroom aid, especially in the kindergartners. And, you know, so when you've got a young one that you have to help them tie their shoe, if you have a classroom of 18 kindergartners and one teacher, that one teacher then, you know, if there are 2 teachers or a teacher and assistant with 30 kids and in a kindergarten classroom, then a youngster has to have help with their shoe being tied and things still go on. I understand that. We also have done a study of class size in Evansville and looked at all the national research. Dr. Minahan's back there. She actually did that. What we found, which will really surprise you, is the most important factor in the child's educational experience in the classroom is not size. It's a very effective teacher. So that's where I am. And once again, it's important to name a principal early because that principal would be charged with leading the building. And we do have principals that have different thoughts on classroom sizes. So right now, we don't have a whole lot of option at Oak Hill and Scott. Because of the, we continue to add assistants, which has its benefits. Yes.
Will the library be provided with sufficient reading materials for the children? I know we have an issue at Oak Hill. We really had to hustle to get books from donations and such.
I'll say this just because I was called an agitator today in a friendly way with my team. Why are we going to have a library?
Because the children want to read books. I have four young children. They don't want to read enough. They want to read a book.
I'm just, I'm agitated now. I just did that for Marcia's sake. One of the things that we've already done, actually, Dr. Minhan has done, is she's conducted research about new facilities going up because I think education now has to change, okay? Especially for our older students. We won't probably get into that because that's beyond the scope of our conversation tonight. But in building facility now, and this is really where we want your input, do we want libraries as we built them in the 60s and 70s? Because research is also pretty clear, especially parents that want their kids to go to private schools because they went to the private school. They want their child to have the same educational experience they had 30 years ago when the world has changed. Probably is not the best situation for their kids. But when you really look at change and innovation and disruptive innovation, private schools aren't there because they have to be more attentive to historical aspects of their alumni. What I want to do is to make certain that we have a facility that's adaptive and that can meet the needs not only for 2018, but also 2028 and 2038 and 2058. So will there be a library? There will be a media center, a gathering area. Will there be books? Absolutely. Will those books be tangible books that you can touch and feel? Absolutely. Will there also be electronic versions? Absolutely. Purchased a book today and the conversation, well, do you want it? Because I have the unlimited Kindle because I try to read a lot. I start a lot. I don't know that I necessarily finish. They don't always hold my interest, but I like to underline and, dog ear the pages, but I'm a little older than the kids in first grade now. So
But they do too.
yeah. I still think there's something exciting about the joy of the kid, seeing the get in the book. So we don't want to take that away. What I want to do is make certain that we put our resources in things that will really have the most meaning and have the most impact moving forward. These kids will have 7, 8, 9 different careers and jobs in their lifetime. I just left a meeting where they said somebody walking here now will live to be 140 years old. I sure hope that we prepare, probably not me, but I sure hope that we prepare folks, not just for the immediacy of their first job, but that we still instill that passion for learning. And unfortunately, I think too many times we bring that out. I think the facility and an opportunity to work together, as well as having input and making it truly a community school. And to me, a community school is part of the community and the community is part of the school. So that you actually hit on something that we've talked quite a bit about. What will it look like? What will it need to be in order to serve the students now and in 50 years from now? Yes.
I know the bus transportation has kind of been, I don't know if it's an issue, but with them coming from the junior high to the elementary school, what's the plan for the new school with busing?
With instrumental music or?
School bus.
Right, but busing going from the junior,
From the junior high to will they come from the junior high and then go pick up drop off from there and then go to the elementary, or how is that going to work with the new school?
I don't think I have. Scott is real close to this, which is real close to Oak Hill. So once again, when we're talking about busing, we're talking about busing the same students in essence. So it's not going to be a tremendous difference. I say that, Rick can address that much more.
I think I'm understanding your question correct. The schedule will be the same. So yeah, the buses would do the junior high and high school take those students home, and then go back to the new school, to Scott, to Oak Hill, pick up from there, and then take those students home. So the schedule still would be the same.
And they will still be coming from the junior high.
Sorry, I didn't.
No, it's okay.
Yes.
You said that this is gonna be a pre-K school as well. Do you have any idea of what that enrollment would be? What kind of capacity you would have for pre-K there, one class, two?
At this point, no. I do think that we'll be able to expand it at other schools though, because of this. It will actually be able to increase capacity. Certainly Scott and add it over. That means that we'll have to do some facility adjustments at Oak Hill, but we can do that. Yes.
Has there been any discussion thus far about instrumental being moved back into the elementary school?
Not at this point in time. I will tell you that our instrumental programs are thriving. We also done an analysis. Katie has been busy, but when we added instrumental music back in, we also saw an uptick in our ISEP scores. Not that ISEP scores are end all be all, especially this year, but you know, it is interesting how that correlates in a very positive way. So we'll certainly make certain that we keep that, and you know, high ability, all of those things, very important to us, very important to you. Make certain that those continue to flourish. I'm not certain though we will, because there is really, I think, in many intangibles with having kids in the high school or junior high in the morning with instrumental music.
It's also getting up at 5:30 in the morning to get on the bus.
Yeah.
For a fifth grader, which is
It's not
pretty tough.
even good for
And sitting on the bus with a bunch of high school kids.
understand pros and cons. I still think folks are very, very fond of that program. Yes.
I would just like to say as a parent, we were at Oak Hill for 2 years and loved it. However, we needed to upsize our house and we built a house this summer. Just as a parent, I wish I would have known. I mean, I knew this was in the works, but I didn't really know a time frame. And I just wish I would have known before, because moving a kid this year and then 2 more years, that'll be 3 schools for their elementary K through 6. So that is a lot of moving for young children.
Right.
So I wish maybe you would have let us know a little bit sooner that this was going to happen, so families could have maybe made some other decisions. Because looking forward, I would have probably just left them at Oak Hill and drove them back and forth, because I drive them anyways. That way we'd only have to move once instead of having 3 schools for elementary.
And we process that, and for individuals in your situation, talk to us if you want to keep them where they are, keep them where they are.
That is an option.
That is an option. We're not going to say carte blanche, everybody just do that, but I think that's a very legitimate concern.
We're kind of in her same situation. We sold our home a couple years ago and built one because we needed to have a bigger home. And we specifically picked our neighborhood because it was in Scott District. So this is kind of disappointing in a sense.
Yeah, and contact us when that time comes. That's why, you know, we're doing this with ample time so that we can make the appropriate plans and how many teachers that we need to take with us as we open a new school. I will tell you, I still remember when I was in kindergarten, and then 2 or 3 years ago, but the excitement that there was when a new building opens, you know, John, I mean, the excitement that there was, John, you know, which is, I don't think we can really discount that. But I also want to honor your wishes as the parents to the very best of our ability. We'll do what we can do to make it work.
I know there's a process as far as like filling out that paperwork early and all that good stuff. If it's in the opening up in the fall and we want to stay at our current school, how early in the process do we need to be getting those papers in?
We'll communicate that with you very, very thoroughly. We do staffing in February, So it would probably be in the latter part of fall of 2017, 2 years from now.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes.
I usually say I've lost it. My concern is, I know currently you guys use the roading nurse, I believe, for school nursing. Do you have a nurse that assigned to the school, or do you have a nurse that bounces, like works Tuesday, Thursday at one, Wednesday at another? How do you?
This past fall, we extended hours of nurses that wanted to do that, and those that did not or could not, they stayed as they were. They still have a nurse that is assigned solely to the school 5 days a week.
The reason why I asked.
And I think 6 hours a day is the norm that we're doing now.
The reason why I asked that part of that, because we're the fire department out here, we're responding to any call calls for help, whether it's a cat tree or medical or anything response. So it's nice to know that person.
Yes. And thank you for the catch. Tell you what. I don't know where that came from. Any other questions that you have? And if you can't, just come on.
Well, I'm fielding questions for like 15 people that
Oh,
know
that's
me,
not
so.
fair.
I had some teachers ask me if they are out of North District, and I know you're getting staff primarily with Scott and no teachers, but if they are out of North District, or if they are within North District but not at those two facilities, will that be by seniority again, like it was when we split from Oak Hill?
No. It's not by seniority. It really will be by fit. I am a firm believer that relationships matter. And the relationships that teachers have with families, and not just kids, but families. And with North, it's interesting that you moved from North Attendance District and stayed in North Attendance District. And I think that's in part because of the North family. And it's referred to as a North family all the time. I will be, and my teacher peers may not like me for saying this, but I want those relationships. They will like that part. They may not like it that we're going to take the vast majority from the schools that are impacted. To me, that just makes sense. They already have the relationships developed. It won't be based on seniority. It will be based upon fit, upon the needs of the school, really the needs of the individual grade level teams. So we want to do what's in the very best interest of the students.
When do you plan to start that process?
We'll have the staff in place or named certainly by February of 2018. Okay. And that's the latest. It may be, we may have we will have some identified folks prior to that, because there will be a lot of work that needs to be undertaken prior to, but in a more complete answer is we will have a complete staff named in February. But there will be a working group named before that. What other questions do you have?
On all day?
Well, that was pretty famous. But thanks for building the questions for others.
How many new hires do you expect, if any, for the new school?
Minimally, because teachers probably will be equated to the same, unless student population grows, it will be parallel with that. We have principal interns, or assistant principals. Actually, when the number goes down to 400 or 544, and understand that that is in today's enrollment, so it will be larger than that 3 years from now. There may or may not be an assistant, so we may or may not add administrative staff collectively. Secretaries, the same thing. We may take one from an existing elementary school within this site. We'll add more custodial staff, things like that, things that we can't adjust or resources from other schools, but I think most of the human capital will come from existing buildings. But understand, as we continue to grow, we continue to grow. Oh, it's also someone else's. Yes.
I'm here next week and wait. Will there be daycare offered at the new school?
Yes.
Or will that be at school?
No, there'll be daycare. need for daycare on this side of town is pretty good. And it will be, I will apologize to you for how it was handled this year. That will never happen again.
It was requested.
I cannot, you know, there's no excuse. I won't even try to offer one. Except I think folks understand it will be done better. And there's no reason why we can't have a very accurate number in this, in the spring before. We can certainly plan. We do that for 23,000 students. There's no reason why we can't do it for about 5,000. So, but I do apologize for that. That wasn't right. Other questions? If you think of some, or if you just don't want to ask a question in front of folks, I'll be happy to stick around until the last person leaves. But also there's an email address, and instead of giving you the superintendent email address, it's just david.smith at EVSC.K12.in.us. But yeah, I didn't say it was always. But at EVSC is consistent for everybody. But David.Smith's pretty easy to remember. You can either do that or superintendent at EVSC. Okay. What are your thoughts? A little nervous?
Exciting.
With the
Been there,
kids
done
really
that.
excited? Yeah.
Here's, I mean, how will you, how will you be notifying for future meetings?
We're
Because the reason I said, I do not have a child in school yet. My child will be starting this school. So I don't necessarily get information, you're sending information out to parents. Well, I'm not getting any of that because I don't qualify as a parent yet.
sure you do. It's not.
I don't qualify as a parent for a school system with it.
I would encourage you to watch our website because it will be, that's updated daily. So we'll have information there. We'll also, I'll go out to the PTAs of Scottsville and North Junior High, anyone that would like to have some space time. We'll be very happy to do that. And we'll do that at different times of the day to where we are accessible to everybody. But it's a great question. And I think that the best way.
Because it was purely accidental that I called the Courier Press Facebook. Otherwise, I would have never have known. They're going to make it.
That's probably no one posted it. Probably wasn't me.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, there you go. That's why I was just wanting, because I said, it came out on Tuesday, so it came out yesterday. So, oh my.
Yeah. We knew this would be quick, but we also knew that some folks would have some questions. So we didn't want to wait until after the holidays. We wanted to have some opportunity to speak with you before, and I realized it was very, very quick. But once again, there's some things that we needed to do to lock some things down and make some preliminary decisions about the school. Now we really need your input.